think I'm going to make a t-shirt that just says fucking Gary on it. F***King Gary.
Yeah.
Yep. And then put in the flesh. I'm going to lower this microphone just a second. Because I feel like the takeaway phrase for this entire thing would be fucking Gary.
Yeah.
Fucking Gary. Is it ironic that your brother's middle name is Gary?
I don't think so.
No. Coincidental?
I think it's just coincidental.
Yeah, I think it probably is. As accounted, these don't actually exist. These people don't actually exist. And this
Right.
guy's probably a really nice guy in real life. But now if I ever see him in anything else, I'm going to be like, fucking Gary.
Yep.
Yeah. And of course, if you don't know what we're talking about, I highly encourage you to go back, start season 1, and watch from season 1, episode 1, all the way through to now, because we are about to discuss the finale of In the Flesh, season 2, episode 6. And I don't want to be the mother-in-law from episode 5, where she spoils it for her daughter-in-law. Horrifically.
Yeah.
Spoils it.
On purpose.
Yeah. Hysterically, one might say. I wanted to look up the lyrics for that song that we start out with because it's a very interesting choice. Morning Has Broken by Cat Stevens.
At the very beginning of the episode?
Yep.
Okay.
Because we've been hitting the religious overtones subtly but steadily. So we had the Last Supper in the last episode.
Mm-hmm.
And then we start with this Morning Has Broken. And it's stuff like morning has broken like the first morning. Blackbird has spoken like the first bird. Praise for the singing, praise for the morning, praise for them springing fresh from the world. So this could very easily be interpreted as we're a little bit hinting about the importance of firsts and of new mornings, new beginnings, new risings, some might say.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think that was an interesting choice. And we introduced 2 new characters. Bold move for the last episode of the last season of a season that already had its fair share of characters.
Yes.
Because
But before we get too far.
Oh.
Hi, I'm Matt.
And I'm Rachel. Welcome to the Strange and Beautiful Book Club. Thank you for having your eye on the formula there.
You're welcome.
Well, I think we need a sign that's like, but before we begin, and you can just point at it. I'll be like, oh, right. Yeah, we got to introduce ourselves. Hopefully you know who we are by now because you're not just listening to this at random. And if you are listening to this at random, stop what you're doing and go watch In the Flesh. Unless you don't care about spoilers, because honestly, I wouldn't care. But I recognize that there are people in this world for whom it is very important that things not get spoiled. So we start out at a diner, and there's 2 new characters, and a PDS waitress comes up, and she's like, hello, I am a PDS sufferer, but I am giving back. I have been administered neurotriptyline in the last 24 hours, and I will not go rabid. Tea or coffee? And they're like, oh, yeah. Well, the guy asks for coffee, and the woman asks for nothing. She's like, I'm not a breakfast person. He goes, oh, but it's the most important meal of the day. And we've still got 2 more hours to get to Rorton. So we know they're headed to Rorton. We don't know what for, except they're going for a, quote, retrieval. Because he says retrieval's never... Collection. Collections don't always go as planned. And she's like, okay, yeah, whatever. This reminded me a little bit of the duo from Resident Alien. Did you watch any of Resident Alien?
Mm-hmm.
There's the 2 characters, and the girl is like a homicidal
Yes, the two like secret agents or
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah, and the girl's super homicidal, and the guy's like, "What are you doing?" Except flipped, I think, or I don't know, but it's just like the secret agent duo. But we don't know anything more about them. We're done for now, except that they're on their way to Rorton.
And they work for the company
But
that
we
the
don't find that
parasite.
out till
We see their name badges.
Oh, we do.
Yeah,
Oh,
very prominently.
oh,
And it has the two guys' names as
yeah.
like a company
Halpern
name.
and Wharton. Halpern and Wharton.
Yeah.
They're the two people that invented this medication and they have their own like pharmaceutical company.
A very big influential company now.
I mean, keeping people dependent on this medication is keeping money in their pockets.
Right.
So these people are after someone. We don't know who.
And yeah, anyway, we'll go ahead.
Yeah, and treatments always make more money than cures.
Yep.
Yeah. So it is now the 12th of December, and we know that because Kieran's waking up, and on the radio it says, "Oh, good morning. It's the 12th of December," which means it's the day of the Fete. Fete. But perhaps it is also the day of fate. Fate. Well, that's clever. I'll see what you did there, Dominic Mitchell. That was a good one. You know what? Side note, I looked up Dominic Mitchell to see what else he had done. And I'm going on record right now as saying he has not done enough because he wrote this and he won an award. He wrote the first season and he won an award. He wrote like 2 plays that were like limited run things and they both got like critical acclaim. And then he wrote like an episode of Westworld and then worked as like a producer, writer, like auxiliary writer on the first season and then nothing. And we almost have as many Instagram followers as he does. This is a tragedy. This is a modern day tragedy because he is such a good writer. I would seek out whatever he had written. I am now considering watching Westworld. I never before in my life wanted to watch Westworld. Okay, I watched the Yul Brynner one, but I'm talking about the television show. And now I'm like, maybe I'll check out at least the first season.
Right. He was working on it for season 1.
It's like J. Michael Straczynski. You tell me JMS is involved. I'm in. I'm going to watch it. I watched that stupid ninja assassin movie. Was it dumb? Yeah. Was it really well written? Yes. Can these two things exist at the same time? Yes. The worst part was probably not his choice. I mean, I'm sure it's like, did he write that they whisper ninja every time they are ninja-ing around? I don't know. He also wrote some episodes of She-Ra, like the OG She-Ra, and he's written a bunch of comic books. Come on, but he writes and he gets stuff out there. Maybe Dominic is one of those guys that everything he writes is phenomenal, but he doesn't write a ton, like Patrick Rothfuss.
Right.
So everything that he writes, you're like, oh God, that was life-changing. But he's not Brandon Sanderson. He's the Patrick Rothfuss to J. Michael Straczynski. Let's put it that way. It was just his bad luck that his opus, his In the Flesh, got put on BBC when BBC was cutting funding to move online, which is bullshit. So that was my soapbox, and I guess we'll get back to the episode. But all is not well in the Walker household. It was not well in the last episode, and it has not gotten any weller.
Weller.
Yes, thank you. All words are made up.
Good one.
Thank you. Because the family is turning him into the treatment center. Because they're making him, they feel uncomfortable because of Kieran. Kieran's recent actions are making them feel a little bit not good. And so because of that, they've decided they're going to send him to the treatment center so that he can get back to who he really is. And Kieran's like, this is me. Hi, I'm Kieran. Hi.
Right. They're mistaking
Hi.
actual like personal growth with like toxic a toxic influence from bad friends.
He's unmasked himself finally. And they're like, whoa, put the mask back on. Can you put it back on? We don't like you without it on. And he's basically like, well, I'm sorry, but this is me now. And he tells
This has
them,
always been me, but I've always been wearing a mask.
yeah,
But now I'm figuratively and literally
removing
unmasking.
mask. Yeah. And he tells them, this is me. And the dad goes, well, time for a professional opinion on that. Oof. Wow.
Wow, Dad.
Wow, Dad. I don't know. I don't know if this is you or not. I just don't know. And Kieran is like, are you fucking kidding me? I am finally wholly myself. I am finally expressing myself in a healthy way. And you guys are mad about it. I do feel like this is a moment that, okay, not it to this extreme, but I feel like this is probably a moment that parents come to at least once when a child is growing up. I know most recently our daughter has met a friend, and the friend and her want to hang out like all the time, which is totally fine, totally cute. I love it. But like, I don't know the friend's parents. You want to go over to their house. This is a big moment of letting go in a way that makes me feel safe, but also makes her feel like she has control over the situation at the same time. And of course, this isn't like she's not going to go rabid and eat people or anything. So the stakes are a little lower, but at the same time, it's like, oh, this is a hard moment of letting go and letting her grow up a little bit. And so I think this is a moment of Kieran is moving away from them. He's growing out of his need for them. And they aren't comfortable with that because keeping him the way he was before is safety because they don't know what changing
and it's
will
familiar.
look like. Yeah.
Yep.
And in the meantime, their other daughter is still having a full-on mental breakdown. While they're worrying about the fact that Kieran's no longer wearing his makeup, Jem is still sweating through a towel every night and having horrible nightmares and dating like the village asshole. What is happening?
Right.
And they're like, oh, well, Gary's a nice guy. At least we know he can protect you, I guess. They have no opinion about it. But
Right, they have nothing to say about Gary.
Right. But Kieran is finally with a guy, Simon. And Simon's like nice. He put on makeup to come and meet them. He tried to keep the peace. Kieran was the one who like ended up shattering Sunday lunch. Simon just sat there like, oh God, I don't know what's happening right now. I don't want to get kicked out of another house. So I don't know why we're against Simon, except that they still don't believe Kieran when he says that he didn't do the whole, which we kind of drop that altogether, don't we?
Yeah, they don't ever pursue.
Basically, they needed him
who did it. Yeah.
Right. They don't have any evidence. They don't have anything. They needed him to confess so that they could send him off. I mean, maybe that's what this sending him to the treatment center is it's okay. We're going to let them take you to the treatment center.
Yes, it was not them saying, okay, we are sending you to the treatment center. It's, we acknowledge that they are threatening to send you, and we are not going to get in the way of that.
Yeah. And then we go back to Philip and Amy. I'm fine. We go back to Philip and Amy, and they're leaving because they've packed up their tent, and they're getting ready to head home. And Philip is like, do you know anything about what's happening? And she's like, no, I don't know what's happening. I don't know what's happening to me. And she's freaking out a little bit. She's like, she has been self-identifying as this superhuman, undead, chosen,
the redeemed,
undead liberation army, the redeemed. Yeah. I mean, she was at a commune. She has really hinged her identity and her friend group and her feelings of acceptance on her definition of herself as one of the redeemed. And now that's going away in some way that she doesn't know. It's unpredictable. Something is happening to her. It's
changing. She's becoming something new.
Right. And Philip's like, well, maybe you're just special. And she's like, well, my nan always told me I was special, but I thought that was just like a thing that every nan said. And he's like, well, why don't we go to the doctor? We'll talk to the doctor about it. And she's like, are you fucking kidding me? If I go tell the doctor that I'm coming to life, that I can feel things, that I'm like, my body is waking up, they're going to ship me off and dissect me so fast. You'll have whiplash. Yep. You will have fucking whiplash. Haven't you read Girl with All the Gifts?
Yeah, she knows what's up.
Yeah, she knows what's up. And Philip's like, well, let's go home then, because it's chilly out here. And she's like, oh, are you cold? And he's like, are you not cold? And she's like, I'm freezing. I'm freezing. Listen, my teeth are chattering. And she puts her teeth next to his ear. And then they hold hands and walk off together. This romance broke me. This is so sweet and so lovely. And I would watch an entire 16-episode K-drama with Philip and Amy falling in love. This would have been so good. Anyway, and then we go back to Kieran because while Amy is discovering new acceptance and new life, so to speak, Kieran is just begging them to not send him back to Norfolk. He's getting his daily medication and he's like, Mom, please don't send me back. You have no idea what it's like there. And literally no one is listening to him. They are not listening to him to the point where they are not even acknowledging that he's speaking.
Right. Just no response.
Yeah. Just
it's
not.
Easier that way.
Yeah. Are you going to the Fete? Well, I don't know. I'll be there later, whatever. And then we have this cool scene where all of our characters are prepping for the day. Simon, because we have 3 characters.
Yes, we're doing parallel, like morning ritual preparation.
Right, because at this point we have 3 characters who are deeply invested in Simon's actions. Maxine is deeply invested in what Simon's going to do, and fucking Gary is deeply invested. These 3 characters all have an agenda today. And so Simon is laying out his clothes, which to him are like his sacred, like priest robes almost, which is the clothes he rose in. And Maxine is laying out like a fancy outfit, and fucking Gary is laying out his RPS
pseudo-military
garb or whatever. And it's a really interesting moment of like pause and view these people preparing because they are all going to get up to shit today. And then Simon and Maxine both pray. And I think it's really interesting that Simon uses the, he shall not perish but have eternal life line. And I thought this was a really interesting thing to include and a really interesting twist. Because the whole Bible verse is, and then God shall send his only son who shall not die, but shall have eternal life. And it's literally like, we are equating the fact that we are immortal and that we came back to life as like Jesus, who rose again from the grave and who sitteth on the right hand of God the Father Almighty.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Technically, Jesus is a zombie.
Yeah. And so why would they not identify themselves with the Messiah?
Yeah, the resurrected.
Yeah, the resurrection and the life. Yeah, that was nice. That was a good twist.
Yeah. Gary does do a daily affirmation.
Yeah.
About
I am badass. I still have a dick.
Protecting his town from whatever.
Oh, okay, sorry, I guess. Yeah. Whatever. I don't want to give him any credit. I'm sorry. I'm done. I'm done with Gary. But all 3 of these, 2 of these characters, Simon and Maxine, are banking on this second rising for different reasons. But
we started off with Maxine verbally saying that she did not want a second rising.
Right. Which was a lie, everything else out of Maxine's mouth. Yeah, which Henry Lonsdale's mother called. She goes, everything out of that woman's mouth has been a lie. And fair. It has been. And fucking Gary just wants to kill Simon. And he wants to kill Simon so bad. He shows up at Maxine's house and he actually grabs Maxine. And he's like, let me go kill him. And she's like,
say the word.
Say the word and I'll do it. And she's like, go home. I'm ordering you to go home. You do not touch Simon.
And here she starts using the term disciple whenever she's talking about Simon.
The disciple. How does she know he's a disciple?
I don't know. But I think this is the first part in her narrative where she's not covering up her motivations anymore.
Yeah, she's starting to let it slip because she's so close to her goal. It doesn't matter how much she keeps manipulating people.
Right.
And Gary does go home. Not his home. He goes to Amy's home.
Again.
And he breaks down the door and they're all gone. And they've written a quote on the wall and it's like, the dead shall rise again, incorruptible. Okay. And he's like,
in
oh.
12/12.
Right. So he writes it down
December
on a piece
12th.
of paper. He's like, I can't remember all that. So he writes it down on a piece of paper. And then we go back to the mystery people. And they are at Dr. Russo. And Simon was the one who called into question whether or not Dr. Russo would be on their side. He said the living are all the same. He'd throw you under the bus immediately. But Dr. Russo is not, because they are asking
And
for
even
someone's...
Amy
Yeah.
was like, you know what the living are like. Well, some of the living.
Right.
Yeah.
And Dr. Russo's like, I'm sorry, that's confidential information. I can't give it to you. And they're like, all we want is the address. It's fine. Just write it on a piece of paper. Give it to us. No problem. And he's like, I'm not going to give you that. I don't know what you want it for.
Did I fucking stutter?
Did I fucking stutter? I'm not giving you that. And they're like, so if we got a copy of the medical records, it would indicate that she's between addresses right now? Is that what they would say? And he's like, and again I say, did I fucking stutter? You get nothing. And they're like, so what you're saying is you don't know where Amy Dyer is. Oh, they're looking for Amy. And Dr. Russo's like, yeah, I don't know where the fuck she is.
And they mention
Best of
those
luck.
those test results that you sent back to us were very interesting.
Yeah, Halpern and Weston want her. They want to know what's going on. She is very important to us. And he's like, I hear what you're saying, but I also don't give a shit, and I'm not giving you anything.
Like, I can pass that on to her the next time I see her and get her consent to initiate like line of communication between her and you guys.
Yeah.
But right now,
Sorry.
all you can do, you can leave a memo with me.
Yeah.
And I'll pass it on to her.
The best I can do. Sorry. Maybe if she shows up, if she's still in town, if she still exists, I don't know. Like, I'm not going to tell you anything. And we move on. We go back to Philip and Amy. And Amy's like, Philip, will you still love me if I'm not cold? Like, if I'm not a PDS sufferer? Because, I mean, as far as she's aware, he's got a little bit of a thing for PDS sufferers because he was frequenting the brothel. And I'm sure he didn't tell her I was doing it so somebody could pretend to be you.
Well, he told her
because someone looked like her.
Yeah, he said there was someone there that reminded me of someone.
Right.
She reminded me of you.
Yeah, I love you.
It was you.
Yeah, it was you. And he's like, I'd love you if you were cold. I'd love you if you were hot. I love you if you were tepid. I love you because you're Amy. Full stop. That was the correct answer, Philip.
Good job, Philip.
Good job, Philip. Because Amy is like, ho, I've bagged a good one. You have, Amy. That's a good choice.
And then they're getting close to the fence.
Yeah, the boundary
And Philip's
fence.
like, oh, the beating the bounds march thing today. We'd better stay away from there.
Yeah, let's not go that way. So they turn and go a different direction. Whatever this beating of the bounds is, must be, I don't know if this is like they're clearly walking the boundary of the town, but I don't know what this means as like is this a long time tradition? Is this a thing they've started since the Rising? I don't know.
Beating the bounds or perambulating the bounds is an ancient custom still observed in parts of England, Wales, and the New England region of the United States.
Oh, you
which
didn't know about
traditionally involved swatting local landmarks with branches to maintain a shared mental map of parish boundaries, usually every 7 years.
Oh, that's really interesting.
These ceremonial events occur on what are sometimes called gang days. The custom of going a-ganging was kept before the Norman conquest. During the event, a group of prominent citizens from the community will walk the geographic boundaries of their locality for the purpose of maintaining the memory of the precise location of these boundaries. While modern surveying techniques have rendered these ceremonial walks largely irrelevant, the practice remains as an important local civic ceremony or legal requirement for civic leaders.
Interesting. That is really
I can see that. So then the leaders lead the entire town.
Yeah.
And say,
here's all the edges.
Tree, bang.
Yeah.
This tree, bang. This rock.
Bang. I gotcha. Yeah. No, that's pretty cool, actually. Okay, so that's what they're up to. And they must be walking the border fence. And they've all brought weapons to the beating of the bounds. Yeah. Which I'm sure is a modern adaptation. But Philip and Amy end up going to a jumble sale. Or like a...
well, this is the Fete.
The Fete, yeah. And the Fete is stuff that's happening all around the town. Today's like a festival day. But they're like...
he has a ticket to get in.
Right, there's people selling stuff and some like... it's just like a little fair.
It's a craft
fair.
A
craft fair. And Philip has a ticket to get in. So he gives the lady, Mrs. Lamb, the lady who was recording everybody, he gives her his ticket. And she's like, excuse me, she doesn't have a ticket.
She's not valid.
She's not valid. And Philip's like, I think if you will look in paragraph 1, subsection 2 of the Charter of the Fete that I fucking wrote, it says that everyone who has a ticket is entitled to a +1. She's my +1. I assure you she's valid. Don't at me, bro. I wrote that.
Mic drop.
And she's like, oh, okay. That's fine. I guess. Well, she can't. He's like, congratulations on being on the city council, but don't speak to me of the deep magic because I was there when it was written.
Yeah.
Like, don't. And she does say, she gets a little barb in because he tells her congratulations on your appointment. And she goes, yeah, it's about time this village was represented by God-fearing people and not you, Philip, fornicators and devil worshippers or whatever. And he's like, okay, cool. So see ya. And so they go off to have fun, And then we go.
Because Amy wants to touch more things.
Right.
Now that she can feel.
Everything. And so they go back to the fence and Maxine is kicking off the beating of the bounds by like cutting the ribbon on the new border fence, which was finished early and under budget, thanks to the policies enacted by the city council. Forced
enslavement.
Forced labor, yeah. Of course you went under budget. You didn't pay the workers. And she actually refers to the border fence as incorruptible.
Because her mask is slipping.
Yeah. Because she's hearkening to the idea of the dead shall rise again, and this time they will be incorruptible. Huh. And then we go back to Dean, because Dean is watching the house to keep Kieran in the house. And Kieran is actually in the process of escaping right now. But Dean is standing outside and Gary drives by and he's like, oh, fucking Gary. It's like, asshole.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, go Dean.
Oh, what does he say? Asshat?
Yeah.
I think he calls him an asshat.
Yeah, he calls him somewhere. Fucking Gary, basically, translated. And I mean, we've mentioned before, I don't hate Dean. Dean feels like, like an elemental, like a force of nature. He is not evil or good. He just exists. I don't know. Dean doesn't have enough agency to be a bad guy. But Gary gets there and he's like, I'm giving you the day off. And Dean's like, no. She said I'd be watching him all day. And Gary's like, come on, I'm giving you the day off, man. Here, go have a mulled cider on me. And he hands him some money.
Now go before I see sense.
Yeah, go before I decide I want to go get some mulled cider. Yeah, he's chumming it up a little bit with Dean. And really, fucking Gary is there to beat Kieran up. Because he goes up right as Kieran unlocks his door. And
then kicks him.
And kicks him back. And Kieran is not having this bullshit. I am here for the new Kieran. Because he's getting hit, he's getting punched around, and Gary's trying to say, like, I protected this town. They needed me, and I was here for them. And he's like, fuck you, Gary. You get off on this shit. You got a hard on right now, don't you, Gary? And Gary is like, I need you to be the meek little dude you were before. I need you to be that, because I need that to validate me. And
I need to be able to push you around to feel better about myself.
And Kieran's like, whatever, Gary. I'm not here for that anymore. I'm not here to provide you with validation. I am done punching everybody else's ticket but my own. You want to validate your parking? You validate it your fucking self. I'm done. And Gary's like, okay, well, whatever. You guys are all evil, and I'm not going to let what happened during the Rising happen again. So maybe, I'm not giving Gary credit because I don't want to give Gary any credit, but maybe what happened during the Rising affected Gary.
Traumatized Gary.
Yeah, in the same way that it affected Jemima. But instead of him having night sweats and trying to vow that he's never going to hurt anyone again, he needs it to go back to the way it was. So everything that he did will be validated and so that he'll be needed again. And so he won't have to think about the consequences of what he did or about what it means about him. He just needs things to make sense again. And for that, he needs conflict, even if he has to create the conflict
himself. And for him,
himself.
things really made sense when he was a hero of the town.
Right.
Fighting a very well-defined black and white enemy.
Yes. And we go back to the people marching around the bounds. And Maxine is leading the march, but she drops out as soon as they get to the cemetery, the old cemetery where all the dead rose.
And she has Jem lead it.
She's like, Jem, you do this. You've got this. You're a war hero. You can do this. And then we go back to the Fete, or the craft fair, where everything's the little booths. And Shirley, I think it's Shirley, Philip's mom, is talking to Kieran's mom. And she's like, oh, it's disgusting what the council's trying to do to him, but it's a good thing he's got you in his corner. And his mom's like, yeah.
About that.
That's really, yeah, we're like the most supportive parents in town. And then we go back. Of course, we're hopping. We've been hopping for episodes now, but it's all happening fast because this is the climax of a lot of different things. Because Gary finds the blue oblivion in Kieran's room that he picked up from Amy's bungalow last episode.
And he snaps.
And he's like, oh, you were going to go to the Fete, go rabid in front of a bunch of little children, you fucking pervert. Like, Gary, where'd that come from?
Projecting much?
Is that what you would do, Gary? That's really interesting. Do you want to talk about why that was your first idea of what might happen? Let's unpack that, Gary. Because Kieran's like, oh, that's not mine. I was holding it for a friend. He's like, I literally found it at the bungalow. I don't know how it got here. I just hadn't flushed it yet. I don't know what to tell you. And Gary drags him out of the house and forces him into the car. He's like, you want to do that? You want to go rabid? Let's do it.
While Simon watches from outside.
Yeah, because Simon
I was a little surprised that Simon didn't step in.
Well, I think Simon may be hoping that Gary kills Kieran so he doesn't have to. Because at this point, Simon is
still committed to.
Yeah, he has been tasked with killing Kieran. Mission. Yeah, and he has to do it today. He has to do it at the 12th hour of today. And I don't know. I think he's really hoping Gary just does it, and it just frees him from the obligation to do it. I don't think it'd make him feel any better, but at least it wouldn't be his hand that did it. So he follows, but he does not interfere. And then we get a really sweet moment with Philip's mom. And oh my God, why was this relationship so sweet and everything about it perfect? Just so it could rip our hearts out at the end?
Yeah.
And then show them to us?
Yep.
Because Philip's mom is like, she goes over and talks to Amy because Amy's eating a toffee apple. And she's like, Amy,
are
honey,
you feeling okay?
Are you okay? Because you can't eat. And Amy goes, oh, that's right. I forgot. I am PDS. I do not eat things. And then she goes and like puffs up her cheeks like she's about to throw up. And Philip's like, oh no, do you feel bad? Let's step outside. And so they go to leave. And his mom is like, Philip, I just want you to know you did good. You got a good one.
Yeah.
I love you, Philip.
Yeah. Super sweet.
But the religious fanatics, the ones that Simon has been frothing up like hot milk, have escaped the house. Of course, they weren't there when Gary got there. But where they are is at the new cemetery.
They are preparing for the second rising.
Chanting. And all I got to think was, how early did they get there? How long have they been standing over these graves just going, rise, 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 rise.
Yeah.
I'm not serious enough for that. I'd be like, guys, can we take a break? Can we like take 15 and we'll come back? I mean, how soon is this going to happen? Do we have a timeline here? How long are we going to be chanting at these graves? If there's one thing that I felt was really like unclear, and maybe this was a deliberate choice, was like, why do we want the first rising? We keep talking about it in such vague, like mythological concepts that we don't have a clear, like, we want the second rising because ... Maxine wants it because she thinks, as the vicar thought, that only the righteous and the ones who have deserve it will come back to life the second time around.
Right, and they'll be whole.
And they'll be whole and incorruptible again, which is real good because Maxine's brother died in 1994.
Yeah.
So, sorry, Maxine. There's not a lot of brothers
for
left.
the most part, we have a fairly scientific mythology about how the zombies work.
Yeah.
So, like, there's still a requirement that you have, like, a functioning brain.
Right.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
Like, in The Walking Dead.
Or flesh at all.
It's a thing that everybody has, and then when you die,
you come back. Immediately.
Right. And so that's why the zombies are all intact.
Right.
And here we have people who were dead for like less than a year.
Right.
And maybe it was something that they had.
We don't know.
We don't know.
We don't know. And we don't know because it ended.
And I guess I wonder if anybody like physically intact enough would have risen, but that time period for when people would still be physically intact enough was around a year.
Oh, that could be it.
And anybody could have risen if their body was still intact enough.
Maybe. That's an interesting idea. I don't know. We don't talk about it. But
and was it just humans?
Matt did mention, did babies come back?
Are there any zombie babies?
And I was like,
did they?
Oh my God, because they'd be stuck in their coffin. They wouldn't be able to get out.
Yeah.
So that's your creepy shower thoughts with Matt and Rachel today. If a baby zombie comes back in its little tiny coffin, is it stuck in there forever because it lacks the muscle control to dig its way out? I think it's like, there's that one episode, it was like something Z, or it was a television show. It was like Z World or Z something. It was on Sci-Fi for a little while.
Yeah.
And they had like a creepy baby zombie, which was supposed to be really funny, but we had a baby at the time, so I was traumatized.
Yeah, I think it was Z Nation.
Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, we watched like 2 episodes.
Right. And then Kieran gets dumped by Gary. We're back to Gary. Gary drags him out. He dumps him in a field, and he opens the blue...
He's like, you want to go rabid? I'll give you go rabid.
So he opens the pill, and he dumps it on Kieran's injection site, which I guess it must just have to get into their system in some way.
Right.
So an open
we've
wound
seen
would
people
count.
snort it before. When the people got on the train...
Yeah, everybody else has snorted it, but they put it on Kieran's injection site, which it must work because he's immediately like, oh shit, and he starts...
But most of it gets spilled.
Right. But he ends up running to the graveyard, the new graveyard, where all of the PDS sufferers are actually barring the living from entering because the march is headed to that cemetery, so they're blocking the way because it's sacred ground. There's no living allowed.
Right.
And Kieran gets over the fence and he's tying himself to the vicar's cage. Because remember, they put a cage over the vicar and they're like, it's what he would have wanted.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he's trying to tie himself to it, but he's losing control too fast. And then we go back to Maxine. And Maxine, this is when we get our big reveal of what Maxine's been up to. And she's been trying to instigate the second rising because she believes her brother will come back. And so she puts the train on his grave. Mm-hmm. And she's like, soon, little brother, soon. And she's just waiting because she knows, for some reason she knows that Simon has been, she does because she got the DVD.
Yeah.
That's why she knew he was a disciple too. Okay, sorry, just answered all my own questions. But she's waiting because she knows Simon is going to kill Kieran. And so, or kill the first risen. She doesn't know she doesn't know that Simon thinks it's Kieran.
Right. And she knows who she thinks the first risen is.
Yeah.
Which I don't think Amy. We haven't revealed that yet.
I don't know if we have or not.
All we've seen of her so far on that topic is Sharon, whoever the B&B lady is, indicated a picture, and then she put a picture in her purse.
Yeah.
But we didn't see whose picture she put in her purse.
Right.
So she has the idea of who the first risen is.
Right.
From her perspective. And she knows that Simon has been tasked with killing the first risen. But she figures if she knows who the first risen is,
he does
Simon does too.
Yeah. I mean, she's too far gone to make any accurate assumptions at this
Right.
point, so it's fine. And so she's waiting because she thinks Simon's going to do her dirty work for her. And then her brother's going to come back and everything's going to be copacetic. And in the meantime, Kieran has gone rabid.
And the bell has started tolling.
And the clock has started tolling. And they find out that Kieran is in there. Does Gary tell her? Somebody tells Jem that her brother is in there and he's rabid.
Is coming up to the new cemetery.
Right. And Jem is threatening the PDS suffers to get out of the way. And
then, somebody says Kieran's in there. I think it's Gary.
Yeah, I think Gary runs up and he's like, your brother went rabid. He took a bunch of blue oblivion and he went rabid and he's in that cemetery.
Yeah.
And Jem is like, what? And so she pulls her gun and she's like, get out of my way. And of course they crumble because, religious devotion only runs so deep. And in this particular group. And so they get into the graveyard and Jem she's going to shoot Kieran, or she's got her gun on Kieran. And she's like, Dad, leave. I don't want you to see him like this. And her dad is like, nope, he's my son.
He's finally realized.
Like, I have driven him to this. I've driven him to this.
Like, probably my behavior contributed to the last time he ran away and did something drastic. Oh no, I've done it again. My behavior has driven him to do this.
Yeah.
I didn't realize he was that desperate.
Right. And I wasn't listening, and now I'm listening. And he's like, listen, Kieran, I get it. I'm so sorry.
And we see Kieran fighting it.
Yeah, and Kieran walks up to his dad. He puts his hands on his dad's shoulders, and he like his dad's face is going in and out of focus. And Kieran is just trying his best to not harm his father. And in the meantime, Jem has her gun out, and Pearl, the lady who runs the bar, has her gun out. And as the clock is chiming, we see the two people with the gun, and then we cut back to Maxine.
And we see Simon at the edge of the graveyard.
Yes.
With his knife. His saw, whatever.
Right. And then we cut to Maxine, and we hear a gunshot. And we don't know what just happened.
And Maxine's like, all right.
Yeah, and Maxine's like, yeah. All right, little brother, come on out. Ready or not, here we go. Okay, yeah, no, you can come out anytime now. It's fine. Little brother, are you
coming?
Are we gonna?
I'm listening. I don't hear anything.
Are you having a hard time? Should I dig you out? That's an interesting choice. Why didn't she try to dig him out? If she was so for sure he was going to rise, why didn't she try to help him? Maybe so nobody would see her. Plausible deniability. Yeah, it could be that. Yeah, but it doesn't work because Kieran didn't die. Simon took the bullet for Kieran.
In the back.
In the back. He jumped in front of him. He didn't die this time. He just absorbed the impact for him. And we're back at the cemetery where Maxine is, but this time we're talking with Amy and Philip because Amy has brought Philip to meet her nan.
Aww.
And he's talking to her nan. He's like, so those are all my hobbies and interests. And he's like, so those are all my hobbies and interests. Is there anything else that she would want to know? And so Amy's telling Nan about Philip. And Philip's like, oh, you're embarrassing me. And she's like, no, I'm just telling the truth. It's really sweet. He understands the importance of this to her, and he is doing his best to make it important to him too.
Yeah.
Because they are doing nothing but giving us farther to fall. Because then Maxine runs up and stabs Amy in the chest right after she realized her heart had started beating. And bright red blood is on the knife. And then we go back to Simon and Kieran, and they're having kind of a heart-to-heart in the doctor's office. Mm-hmm. Because Kieran's like, I mean, thank you, man. Like, what just happened? Like, shit went down today. Am I right? Or what? And Simon's like, you have no idea.
And Simon is telling Kieran about how he's never seen anyone resist oblivion before.
Right.
And how, he's so special. And he's like, no, I don't have any special powers or
he's like,
anything.
I'm
He's
not
like,
special.
but you do. The power to disappear.
Yeah. Where were
without
you?
fucking telling me where you were going, and you were going to be gone for days.
Simon's like, oh yeah, sorry. I got assigned to kill you. It's a whole thing. Can we talk about it later? And just at that moment, Philip runs in with Amy, holding Amy's like bleeding body. And the little howl he lets out when he first comes in, like, this is so sad. I had hung my hat on this relationship because it was so sweet. Mm-hmm. And they just ripped my heart out. It's so tragic. It's so perfectly done because everything else is very emotional. Everything else is very, we got a lot. There's a lot of tension. There's a lot of drama. There's a lot happening, but this is a very personal, very real, very easy to empathize with thing that happens. A result of the actions of the people in the town that really drives home what they're doing. It's taking people away from the people that love them. And that represented to us is this almost perfect love story between Philip and Amy, where they had the potential to be in love for the rest of Philip's life. Maybe Amy's life too, since she was coming back to life. But that all gets taken away because of Maxine's selfishness. So who is the real villain? Because when given the opportunity to act out against his parents, Kieran fought to not hurt anybody else because it was more important to him to never harm anyone again than it was to serve his own agenda.
Right.
But Maxine would rather kill a woman, Amy, who we just found out was the first risen, according to my notes.
Yep.
And I called it that Kieran was not going to be the first risen, or at least we don't think so. And so, yeah, who's the villain in this season? In both seasons, it's the living. It's Gary. It's Maxine. It's the people continuing to drive the bigotry and hatred, either because they believe that's the right thing or to serve their own ends. And it's sad and it's awful. And this is when Maxine arrives at the Fete and she is covered in blood. And she gets up in front of everybody at the microphone. And this is a beautiful mockery of every other moment where she has stood in front of the room at this microphone and completely commanded the attention of the people in the room.
She also drops a bloody picture of Amy on her way in.
Right, because that's the picture she took off her wall.
Yeah.
But every other time she's done this, she's gotten them on her side. She's gotten them fired up. Right. She's gotten them ready to do her bidding. And she's trying to do that again, but she's covered in blood and talking absolute nonsense. Because she says, her brother died here when he was very young. He was 7. He died here when he was young. And they said it was an accident. They said it was her. She doesn't finish it.
She stops herself.
Yeah.
Before she admits that she did something.
Yeah. Some actions of hers. He never should have been. Something that happened. Yeah, he fell. And something that happened that she did. Some action that she took resulted in his death.
And she has never let herself, she's never forgiven herself for that.
Right. She's carried that guilt and she needs him to come back so he can forgive her, so that she can let it go and everybody can be fresh and new and we can all have a new life and we don't have to think about how we accidentally killed our brothers when we were children again. Okay, guys? And they're all like,
right. You all know exactly what I'm talking about, right?
What? And she's like, listen, I know how I said I didn't want a second rising, but this one is going to be better. There's going to be blackjack and hookers. I'm just kidding. It's going to be better. It will be the pure and the righteous and the people that deserve to come back. That's who's going to come back this time.
We have to sacrifice the first risen.
Yeah.
And I thought I knew who that was. I thought it was the girl, but
it didn't work.
So one of the first risen is here. all of the PDS in this town have to be destroyed.
Yeah.
So we make sure that the second rising can happen.
Right.
Which is exactly what the vicar wanted to do in episode 1.
Right. If we can kill everybody in Rorton, we can make the second rising happen. And they're all like, what?
And then she starts going after the B&B lady's
right. She's
mother-in-law.
running down to get to the mother-in-law, and Dean tases her. That was a beautiful moment because she just falls forward. And Dean's just like, oh, weirdo. He's just like, okay, whatever. Asshat. It's like, wow. Wow. Thus endeth Maxine. I love how it was dramatic in that she went up there and made a speech, but then her getting captured was very like, just like they did to the rabbits. That's how they caught rabbits, is tase them and then pack them off. And it's brilliant. It really is. And then we go back to Amy, because just as Amy was coming to life, she is now dead. She lost too much blood. She got stabbed in the heart. When he pulls open her eyes look like
her eyes have gone back.
They've gone back to normal. And that's it. That's the end of Amy. And Philip starts crying, and I started crying, and I think Matt cried a little bit. Mm-hmm. And everybody cried. Kieran cried. It's awful. Amy was this beautiful, fun, vibrant source of life and light for all of the people that knew her, and now she's just gone. And she's gone because of Maxine's selfish actions. And it's horrible. But she did leave a will and testament, remember?
Yep.
And it names Kieran as her executor, the person to take care of all of the things she's arranged for her afterlife.
Yeah.
Jem comes in while he's preparing. And he said, you're not allowed to wear any dark clothes or any boring suits.
Yeah, where's your outfit? Oh, it's in my room.
Yeah, for her totally cool send-off that she wanted. And she even has a VIP guest list, which Jem is on. And he does say, but he can't come, meaning Gary. And Jem says, oh, I already broke up with him. Because if it comes between his word and your word, I choose you.
Yeah.
Which is all Kieran has wanted to hear this entire time. Was just,
finally,
I choose you.
Finally, some acceptance from a family member.
Right. And she has this beautifully painted coffin. And I love the 2 date ranges. Like, this was my first life. This was my second life. And it's really sweet. And everybody's got on like flowers in their hair. And Kieran has on a dapper suit jacket and hat. And Philip tries to everybody's putting stuff in there. A romance novel, a picture of her, a flower. And Philip tries to give her the stuffy that he won her, but he can't bring himself to drop it in there. And again, she has chosen her epitaph, but this time it is, "'Tis better to have loved and lost than never to have loved at all."
Appropriate.
God, this was so sad. This was, just chef's kiss. If you're the type of person that loves to have your heart broken, that did it for you. It did. And we find out that Maxine's been committed, because now we're at the wake, kind of the after buffet of Amy's funeral, and they're kind of chatting. Everyone's spreading, gossip, and one of the things is that Maxine has been committed, and Philip's not there because Philip won't leave Amy's graveside.
Probably thinking that she might come out again. She might come
back, which is not an unrealistic, it's happened before. They live in a world where the dead have risen. So,
right. In particular, Amy has risen.
Yeah. And Matt was like, why don't they give her a bell?
Right?
Yeah, like they used to when they were afraid people would get buried alive. Yeah. And then we get kind of a wrap up. We're kind of showing all of our characters and where they are now, because fucking Gary is now alone and he has nothing in his wallet. And Dean is the only one who will buy him a drink, but he doesn't sit with him. He just gives him the drink. And we are all kind of back to our sham of acceptance and being able to live together, because the religious dead, let's call them that, are at the pub and they all have water, because that makes people more comfortable if they sit there with something. Mm-hmm. And Pearl is allowing them all in because she's the one who tried to shoot Kieran. So she's working off her guilt. And then we go back to Kieran, and Kieran's in the bathroom, kind of having a moment. and his hand starts shaking. Very interesting. And he finally looks at himself in the mirror. And can we just give like a slow clap for this actor? Because he has to convey so much in this moment. He's not looking at a mirror. He's looking at a camera lens.
Right.
And he has to go from, I can't even stand the sight of myself to, you know what? Maybe it's okay. And the only thing he gets to use is his facial expression. And it's so poignant and is conveyed so well with just this simple him looking at himself in the mirror without feeling revulsion. Him looking at himself in the mirror and accepting that that's who he is now. And the fact that we went from season 1, episode 1, Kieran, to season 2, episode 6, Kieran, in 9 episodes, and that entire arc was believable and amazing and just fucking fantastic is, I mean, I am
It's
here
impressive.
for this. If every television show had this kind of writing, I might watch television shows because I wasn't expecting this. I was expecting cheap conflict. I was expecting like people making stupid, frustrating decisions in order to keep the plot moving forward because that's what I have been conditioned to expect. And we did none of that, and yet we still progressed the plot. We still had wonderful moments of conflict and tension and awkwardness, but they all felt believable. They all felt like I could watch this again, and I'm not like, oh, that part. I hate that part. I'll just fast forward through that part.
Well, maybe every part with fucking Gary.
Fucking Gary. Well, it kind of reminds me of Vesper, right? Because for the first part in Vesper, we were in.
Oh, yeah.
We loved Vesper. And then as soon as we got to the dude, the post-apocalyptic dick-measuring dude who won't give up control of his tiny little world where he is king, I was like, checked out. And we could have gone that way with this so easily. We had all the makings. We had Gary. We had, well, I mean, Maxine tried, but I think we really did such a good job of not making that what this plot hung its hat on. We're not done with this episode. I just wanted to pontificate about that for a minute. Because Kieran's hand starts shaking. He doesn't look at himself with hatred, which is amazing. And then Kieran sees the bracelet that Jem got from Gary, which was originally made by Henry. And he takes it in and he's like, Jem, where'd you get this? And she's like, oh, Gary made it for me, but I don't want it anymore. I already took it off. And he's like, Gary didn't make this for you.
Nope.
Henry made this for you. And she starts crying.
He was showing it to everybody.
Yeah,
He showed it to me
at the party.
the night that he disappeared.
Yeah. And Jem starts crying. And he's like, Jem, you know what happened to Henry, don't you? And she just nods.
And she starts kind of breaking down like it was an accident.
It was dark. I thought he was rabid.
I was on patrol.
And she's like, Kieran, I think I need help. And he's like, okay, Jem, then we'll get you help. Again, like, just thank you. Thank you. This kind of writing is what every television show should aspire to. I've already said all I wanted to say about it, but it's just a realistic narrative that tends towards the characters actually making the kinds of decisions that real people would make.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, or should make, which is the point of narrative. The point of narrative is to teach us, to show us, to expose us to things we wouldn't otherwise be exposed to so that we have that like cognitive mapping for what kind of decisions you make in that moment. So why should we not demonstrate these kinds of like, hey, they made mistakes, but they moved through it and now we've moved past it and we're better for it.
Right.
Yeah. So finally, we talked to Simon and Kieran. And Kieran is like, well, so are we going to hang out later or whatever? And Simon's like, actually, I think we should just leave. Like, we should just pack our shit and go.
Yeah, this is Simon shows up, or at least they're talking by the door, and Simon's like, let's just get out of here, go somewhere far away.
Yeah.
And Kieran's like, well, no, like Amy asked me, how far would I need to travel to be okay with myself. And I thought I would have to travel around the entire world. But I don't anymore.
Yeah, it turns out
I'm okay right here.
I'm perfectly fine. I am okay right here. And it's a big statement for him because a lot of what we've talked about in the last 9 episodes, which felt like the 15 seasons, I don't even know, was like, I want to get out of here. I want to go. I don't want to be here. Being here is too painful. I can't be here. And now he's like, I don't know. I feel like I'm okay. I'm not ready to leave.
Maybe he'll move out and get his own place.
Well, maybe he has Amy's place now because he's the executor of her stuff.
That's a good point.
And so his dad and mom come over, and Simon is initially like, oh shit, oh God, here we go. And they're both like, listen, we just want to thank you.
Oh yeah, and Simon is like, I don't want to talk to your parents because they blame me for all this stuff and blah.
But they don't. They're like, thank you, Simon. Thank you for being there for our son.
For taking a bullet for our son.
Yeah. Literally taking a bullet for him. Thank you. We accept you. And we accept your relationship. And we say, accept all of this. Like, this is what everybody's been waiting for this whole time, is just like acceptance. And Philip finally leaves Amy's grave.
Yeah, we cut to Amy's grave.
Talking of
he's
acceptance.
Just sitting cross-legged in front of the patch of dirt.
Right. And he puts the stuffy down. And he gets up to walk away, and the stuffy gets knocked over. And he stops for a minute.
Subtitles say scuffling.
Right. And he stops for a minute, and then there's nothing. Okay. And then he leaves, and then we see the mystery duo. Remember the mystery duo? They disappeared earlier. We haven't talked to them in a while. And they're like, oh, fucking finally. And so they drive in, suit up, and dig up Amy. Yeah. And that's the end of the episode. And that's the end of the series. That's the end of the season. End. And if anybody is disappointed in how this ended, or the fact that it ended at all, I'm not disappointed in the ending. I think the ending is perfect, just like chef's kiss. Beautiful. But I'm disappointed it ended at all. And if you are, please, I'm going to put a link in the show notes to Dominic Mitchell's GoFundMe. You can help him raise money to at least write the 3rd season, so we can read it to see what was going to happen to everybody.
Yeah, maybe make a graphic novel or something out of it.
I don't know. That would be.
I was thinking, what if this got popular again, and people discovered it?
Yeah.
And it got big enough. Could you make a 3rd season? And I don't think, maybe you could hop forward 10 years.
Yeah.
And get some of the actors back. But, they'll look a lot older.
Yeah.
You couldn't really film live action a 3rd season.
You could talk a different story. Like, we could have Kieran and them happening in the background, as part of people talking about them. But we could have, an entirely different group of characters.
Oh, just set.
Yeah.
Just another story in that world.
Yep.
Yeah.
And be like, did you hear about those people in Rorton? About the ones that are coming back to life? That kind of thing. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you could do it that way. But I don't want to brag or nothing, because I'm pretty sure this is not our fault or our responsibility or something that we can take credit for. But his GoFundMe went from being unmatched to all the way funded.
Okay.
So cool. In the last 2 weeks, it has been up for 2 years. He's trying to raise £8,000 or something, and he was at 2,900 and some, or 7,900 and some, and it's finally up. Finally all the way to 8,000. So he's got 8,000 out of 8,000, but I'm sure a little more wouldn't hurt. So if you want to go, just pledge $5 just to honestly, this man should be getting more credit for this. And the best way to show that, he's on Instagram too. So you can follow him on Instagram, or you could go and donate to his GoFundMe, and you can leave a message or whatever and just be like, please, 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 please write the 3rd season, start a podcast about it, and then let us know so we can all listen to it, because that would be fabulous. I will post a link for that in the show notes. So if you have a minute, if you have an extra buck, just head over there and donate, because we have really enjoyed watching this. We have really enjoyed chatting about this, and he should get the credit for the phenomenal writing that went into this.
Ditto.
Matt's just nodding. Yep. You're doing a good job over there, honey. Thanks. How you doing? How do you feel about the ending?
It was good. It was good. I think there's hooks set up for a third season, totally.
Oh, yeah.
And although most of the plot lines are resolved, except, we still don't know who is the undead prophet. What is the undead prophet actually trying to achieve?
Right.
And we know who the mystery duo are. They
work for that, yeah.
They got Dr. Rousseau's test results
right,
from
but
Amy.
They say, is there still time? And the guy goes, yeah, there's still time.
Which kind of implies Amy might not be dead.
Right. So what does that mean? Is this happening elsewhere? There's so many questions,
or
so many places to go.
Did they know that somebody at some point was going to, like, fully recover?
Yeah, like they were going to get enough new cells or whatever. They're going to get enough brain growth that their brain would start becoming self-sustaining again.
Yeah, probably the one doctor says eventually the whole body should recover.
Although she hasn't been taking neurotriptyline. She's been taking apple cider vinegar. So maybe that's the key all along.
Which is what the mixture the undead prophet made.
Right, because we don't know what that guy has synthesized. We don't know what she was taking.
Right.
But Kieran wasn't taking it, and his hand is shaking.
Right. So I think it's just a matter of time.
Yeah.
That they knew that eventually some of the PDS sufferers would hit this point. And they're like, it's probably going to happen. We're going to keep our ear to the ground for anything weird going on. And when Dr. Rousseau sent in Amy's labs, they were like, oh, shit, it's happening. We need to get there.
Right. All right.
Although it could just be like, do we have time? Is like, if she was alive, well, I guess they wouldn't know.
Yeah, we don't know.
All come all the way back to life.
We don't know what they meant at all, but I don't know. So this was farewell to In the Flesh. A bittersweet farewell. I'm going to pretend that Amy came back to life and ran off with Philip, and that you can't convince me otherwise.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Season 3.
Yeah.
Amy comes back in the lab and escapes the lab.
Yep, gets back with Philip. They run off into the sunset. She comes back to life, and they have many, many babies. Or whatever. They don't want to have babies. That's fine, too.
Yeah.
That's the ending.
Yeah.
And now we're back to Forever Night, which will be coming out on Come In 81 Kilo. Not Strange and Beautiful Book Club. Come In 81 Kilo. There is a link in the show notes. Go ahead and go over there and follow. If you've been anxiously awaiting the return of our Forever Night series, it will be back in July. So the best way to keep up with that is to go ahead and follow it. Go ahead. And we have a Patreon. I also posted the link to the GoFundMe on our Patreon as a public post. So if you just go over there and follow us, you don't have to follow us. You can just click on that. But you can also follow us because I do post things over there occasionally. And as long as it's not like audio content, it's usually free. It's usually just a public post. I kind of use it like a blog. So that's a great place to go to kind of keep up with us if you're not on the gram. But you can also go on the Instagram and follow us at Strange and Beautiful Network. We are now Strange and Beautiful Network. And I am so close to changing the link from Anchor, which we haven't been on for like a month now, to something different.
Oh, well.
But my timeline is my own, as we say around here. And, I mean, yeah, we do. You say that, don't you, honey?
Your timeline is your own?
Yeah.
Not really.
Oh, shut up. Okay. He does. He just doesn't want to admit it on air. So I guess we'll just leave it here.
So remember, sometimes the undead things are the most beautiful, too.
So be who you are and love what you love and who you love. And this has been a wonderful Pride collection for 2023.
Until next time, friends.
Bye.